Welcome. This is the talent development community of practice. You may notice that Kevin Cruz is not here today. So, in true Friday the 13th fashion, Kevin wasn't able to make it. And our co host, Dwayne, was not able to make it either. But the show will go on. We have a really good guest today. And let's go ahead and get things started.
Hey, Evan, this is your big moment. I'm rooting for you.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm excited. And we have a really good guest today, too.
Yeah.
So, general ground rules, we got cameras on, mics off. Go ahead and rename yourself to your name and your organization. So, for me, it's Evan LeadX. And then go ahead and drop in the chat. I know there's been some cold weather around the country all this last month. Go ahead and drop where you're based out of and the lowest temperature you've seen in the last month. We'll give the coldest five people a new copy of Kevin and I's book. We wrote it last year. It's called Frontline Leadership Training. Uh, it's a mega niche book getting into design, delivery, and measuring impact of a leadership development program specifically for frontline leaders. We had a lot of fun writing it. We know it's pretty much written for all of you, seeing as it's a small audience who's out there building first line leadership development programs. Seeing some cold temperatures. Maui, I'm envious. I'm in San Diego, so I can't complain either. All right. And of course, normally I'm the one monitoring the chat to award books. So I'll be doing that retrospectively later and sending you out some emails with your book. For now, let's go ahead and take a look at our agenda for the day. So we have Gary Deppe joining us today from Land O'Lakes. He's the director of learning and organization effectiveness and sales training at Land O'Lakes. He scales leadership development to 1,500 plus people managers. It's going to be a really good conversation. We're going to go extra deep and take a lot of questions from all of you. So it's going to be a fun one. And then if there's time, we're going to do a networking breakout room so you can meet each other, talk with each other about what you learned from Gary. And now, before we invite Gary on, I just wanted to take a moment to share some of the emotional intelligence research we've been doing at LeadX. So, as many of you know, as we're entering the AI era, we've got these big reports all speculating on what are the biggest, most important skills we're going to need going into 2026, 2027, and beyond. And like the LinkedIn Learning Report, McKinsey Jobs Report, World Economic Forum Jobs Report, they're all showing a ton of overlap in the skills they're recommending. Of course, we're seeing emotional intelligence, we're seeing creative thinking, we're seeing critical thinking. And then one really big one that we see a lot is decision making. Decision making is coming up all the time. People want to have their employees making good decisions, whether that's ethical or just creative or strategic. And so I wanted to take a moment to talk about this really cool paper. It came out in 2018, and the researchers were looking specifically at hockey, and they were looking at when you pull the goalie out as an offensive strategy at the end of the game. And so tradition says you pull your goalie at the 2 minute mark. And the idea is you bolster your offense, you give yourself a chance to score a goal. Uh, and these researchers, though, they looked at like, why is it 2 minutes? Like, is 2 minutes the actually ideal moment in time to pull your goalie out to score to potentially tie the game? And what they found was that it was really far away from the optimal timing. The optimal timing, if you're down by one goal, was a full 6 minutes before the match ended. And if you're down by two goals, it was as much as 12 minutes. Um, and so what they essentially found and showed was that the coaches were relying on emotional decisions, right? They were um, fearful maybe that they would look bad if they lost, say, 6-0 or 8-0 by pulling their goalie out too early. And so instead of playing for statistical odds of winning, they were playing to minimize damages of a bad loss. And so what this shows us is like all emotions, like all decisions are ultimately emotional to some degree. And you can apply this to your life in all kinds of different decisions. And so Kevin, the LeadX team, and I had a hypothesis. We thought, well, if all decisions are emotional, then how might emotional intelligence be related to decision making? And so we wanted to take a look at, would people who score highly in emotional intelligence be uh, better at decision making? Would they use a decision making process? And so we ran the data on 1,393 working professionals. We had self reported emotional intelligence scores. And then we looked at two measures of decision making. The first one is, do you use a decision making process? So, kind of a basic, like, are you even using a process to make your decisions? And then the second piece was, did your decisions turn out as you expected them to? And so, this is getting at like accuracy of decisions, or at least forethought about what the outcome might be. And we found significant difference across the board. So, overall emotional intelligence is correlated to using a decision making process. It's also correlated to the decisions that you make turning out how you expected them to. So then we zoomed in a little bit more and we looked at each of the core four skills: self awareness, self management, social awareness, and relationship management. And we found that actually there's even a stronger relationship between self management and decision making. That makes a lot of sense. When you consider self management is about regulating your emotions, it would make a lot of sense that if you're good at regulating your emotions, you could make better decisions. And then also social awareness. And, my hypothesis there is maybe you're thinking about how your decisions impact other people. You're thinking about how your decisions make other people feel. And so that's where the social awareness piece might fit in. But zooming out, like I'd love to hear from all of you. Like, are you training emotional intelligence as an intact workshop? Are you training decision making as an intact workshop, or are you bundling those things into other workshops? I'd love to see in the chat. Yeah, yes to both. Small pieces into other classes. EQ, but not decision making. Yeah, weaving throughout. Yeah, I think one big takeaway for me is like, because of that strong connection between emotional intelligence and decision making, I think there's a really good opportunity to bring like decision making activities into the emotional intelligence workshop, especially in that self management portion. So quickly before we bring Gary on to talk about leadership development at Land O'Lakes, I just wanted to share LeadX. We sponsor the community. We are an emotional intelligence training company. We've partnered with the EQ expert, Dr. Travis Bradbury, to build out the fastest growing emotional intelligence program in the world. Uh, we're really proud to be partnering with companies like GE Healthcare, Johnson and Johnson, Marriott, UNFI, and Ivy Tech to deliver emotional intelligence programs. If you get certified, it equips you to facilitate and coach emotional intelligence. It includes over 6 hours of curriculum, an assessment, and how to debrief that assessment as a coach. And we have like video clips from Ted Lasso, one of my favorite shows. And so moving on, give me a moment here while I spotlight Gary. Bringing in my guest. Gary, good to see you.
Great to see you, Evan.
Yeah, so Gary is the director of learning, organization, effectiveness, and sales training at Land O'Lakes. Uh, from what I can tell, I think you've been in L&D for over 25 years. Is that right?
Probably a bit more than 25, but
More?
we'll use 25 as a safe number.
Yeah. Yeah, well, let's go ahead and jump into the interview. I think just to give everyone a lay of the land of your work and what you do, like just talk about what is Land O'Lakes in your own words for people who might not be familiar.
Sure. Well, thanks for having me on. It's great to see some familiar faces on the session today. So if you buy Land O'Lakes butter, you're familiar with some of our products, but what you might not know about Land O'Lakes is, first of all, we are the third largest cooperative in the United States. We have about $17 billion in revenue annually. We'll know more next week when they deliver those. We do business in all 50 states in the US, and we have a small but fast-growing international footprint as well. Beyond butter, our business expands into crop input. So we sell ingredients to help grains and crops grow. We also have an animal nutrition business that spans from backyard flock chickens, horses, cattle, but we also sell to zoological parks all over the world. We have a brand that sells specifically to animals, like we have an elephant food, we have a monkey food. So just really fascinating, very grounded in the agricultural space, and probably do a lot more than you're fully aware of. My job at Land O'Lakes, I started 2 years ago as the Director of Learning and Organizational Effectiveness. So that includes core learning, our learning platform, really focused on the enterprise offerings, leadership development. On the OE side of the exchange, we do change management, org design, teaming. We just introduced a new decision-making model this past fall. And so that tying the concepts to EQ is like something, making notes here for the team. And then along the way, I've been building a community of practice around learning. And so someone thought that I should inherit a sales training team as well, that is embedded in our businesses.
Nice. Okay. And how many employees are at Land O'Lakes and how many leaders are you supporting?
We have about 8,500 employees. 40% of those sit in our manufacturing or production environment, so a very large production population. We have about 1,500 people leaders across the organization, from first-time leaders all the way to VP.
Nice. And what's the size of your team?
I have 14 folks on the team across the various different parts of the business, including two that sell services to our members. So we sell sales training content as well as employee engagement services to our members. And so we have a revenue driving component of our work as well.
Oh, nice. Okay. And just thinking back, like you started 2 years ago, what exactly did you come on board to do? What were they hoping you would come on and bring to the table?
Well, the pitch was to come to elevate learning. So in my career, I've had the great fortune of either building from the ground up or retooling in place learning teams. And Land O'Lakes had a team called OE. They had a small focus on learning, but they knew that they wanted to start to elevate learning, that learning was becoming an important component. So coming in, building out a learning strategy, really looking at the learning technology. We've put in place a learning operations platform, just to start to consolidate vendor management and evaluation, and how we managed our projects. So really just start to build some infrastructure. With that, also, we're in process of retooling our leadership development strategy.
Nice. And so now let's get into like leadership development specifics, right? So what levels of leaders are you offering leadership development to, and what does that look like?
So ultimately, our strategy, we hope to touch every level of leader in the organization, from those who've just moved from an individual contributor to a first-time manager up to our vice president level. We have, and our strategy is focused on this idea of differentiated learning journeys. So really understanding what someone needs, what the skills they require, depending on where they are on that journey, from first-time manager to a seasoned manager, from first-time director, seasoned director. And then for us, that cut from director to VP is a pretty big one. So just getting really clear on what those are needed. Historically, we've taken a very peanut butter approach to learning. Two populations we're very focused on right now. So first-time leader is a critical one. We've had a program in place, but we knew we needed to get more focused on helping first-time leaders into that critical bridge from moving from peer to manager, from learning how to delegate to how do I carry the emotional weight of being a leader. And so EQ comes to play an important component of that. The other big population for us, and probably when I arrived 2 years ago, was the most underserved, was our director plus. So we have
Mhm.
about 300 director plus in the organization. Historically, we've given them 1 day a year of development. So we do a big leadership development, leadership summit, which I help plan and organize. And it historically was basically business updates and strategy. In year two, I had the program. We started to build out development. So last year we did Kevin and team came and did work around the Banny model and some content that he developed there. And this year we've been able to expand the program, and we'll actually have two development modules for our directors. The other thing that
Yeah.
we
Oh yeah. And what was I think banny is like a new term that Kevin coined. Do you want to talk about that a little bit more for anyone who might not be familiar? Like what is banny and why are you bringing that to your directors?
Sure. So most folks on the call will probably be familiar with VUCA, the model that's been in place for quite some time. Banny is built on this idea that the world we live in today is brittle, anxious, nonlinear, and incomprehensible. Basically the world is crazy. And so how we operate in the world today is very different. And Kevin built out a program called Futurecasters, identifying superpowers that leaders need to be successful in this new Banny environment. It just was the right time for us last year to introduce that. We had so much change happening in the organization, and we still are looking to grow, even though a very dynamic agricultural inflection point. So Banny just kind of hit a nerve for us. Interestingly enough, that we also in his content introduced the one-way, two-way door decision framework coming from
Mhm.
Jeff Bezos. So it was a stepping point into our decision-making model. And so it's just been a
Nice.
nice way to we can connect these programs.
Yeah, yeah. And zooming in a little more on that director level program, like are you using any assessments in that program? And if so, what are they?
We do. So every director, before they get promoted to a director, we do the Korn Ferry KLPS, formerly the KVALP. So it's their new leadership potential solution. We've tried to hardwire that more into development, not just the selection tool for their promotion. We also use a wider variety of assessments. So we're a big disc user. We also do Workplace Big Five. We're looking at Hogan for some particular uses, and then of course the EQ assessment from LeadX we also have offering. I think the other thing we do for directors that has been interesting, and there's two initiatives. First of all, right when I arrived, we had a strategic workforce planning initiative kickoff, and they identified 8 organizational skills that cut across all of the needs of our business. So business acumen, strategic thinking, data literacy. And so we started building out 3 times a year an elective course built on one of those skills. So we've done an innovation workshop, we've done a change in storytelling, we've done one on growth mindset, tying back to those SWP skills. The
Nice.
other thing that we do is I facilitate a podcast with some of our senior leaders, which is probably the most fun thing I get to do throughout the year.
Yeah, yeah. I want to get into that in a second. I saw a good question from the chat before we move into the podcast. Lori asked, so your director level training, is that is that at the manufacturing level or is that corporate or both?
It's both. So we Sorry, I just lost the screen here. There we go. We invite director level folks from the production environment to attend our leadership summit, and we try to plug them when where possible. We're doing some other type of development within our production environment, more geared towards lower level managers, though, something specific for them.
Okay. Yeah, and then let's dive deeper into that podcast. That was one of the things I was the most interested in when we had connected a few weeks ago. Like, how did you come up with that idea, and who are you interviewing for the podcast?
Well, two things happened right when I first started. So part of my meet and greets, I met with all of the senior leaders, but in my meet and greet with the chief operating officer, he had talked about how he gets up every morning at about 4 o'clock, and he dedicates 2 hours to do nothing but read. So it might be articles, it might be books, and he then uses that as learning that he often, probably more than the rest of the organization is ready for, feeds that back to the organization. In that discussion, he also talked about being a learning culture. So I knew that we were on to something with him. And then we do a co-creation session for our leadership summit where we pull together a team of volunteers at the director and VP level to help us shape the content, the format, the networking breakouts. And in that, one of the ideas that came out of the co-creation is we'd love to learn how our leaders develop. So we put those two things together and said we'll call it something like Masterclass, which is now the name of it. And what I do is each quarter we identify a leader. I spend a bit of time with them with a set of questions that we've curated. The leader picks out which questions they're most interested in. We talk a little bit about what makes their development specific and personal to them. And then we do a podcast around that. And it's just a discussion about learning of just back and forth with me and a leader. We cap it to only 50 directors. So we create some energy and some specialness to it. We then later release the video to the rest of the population. Since we've kicked it
Nice.
off, I've had a chance to talk to the COO, our chief strategy officer, our chief marketing officer, chief legal officer, and this year we're lining up our heads of business and tapping into them. And the participants love it. They get to hear how leaders figure out how to build development into their day, their week, their month, and how do they do it in a way that meets their needs. So not everyone wakes up at 4 o'clock in the morning and reads for 2 hours. Some do it on a podcast while they walk. Some like to attend conferences. Some like to read condensed articles. So it's just been a great way to share development across the organization.
Yeah, yeah. I find with like as AI content replaces so much of the content in the world, it's like, how do you create your own unique value? How do you bring something that people can't just ask ChatGPT for? And I think like doing a podcast, building a community, talking one on one with someone about like exactly how they're doing their work really fills that hole that like the LLMs can't. So I
Yeah.
think it's a really smart approach. And what's your cadence on that? Is it monthly or sorry if I
We
missed you? Yeah.
no, we do that 4 times a year,
Okay.
quarterly.
Nice. Yeah. There's a question in the chat, and I have this question on my page that I'm hoping to get to is like, let's talk a little bit about AI. One thing you had mentioned in our pre-interview is like, uh, you've designed your own AI literacy program in collaboration with the IT team. Can you talk a bit about that?
Sure. So two things again happened kind of simultaneously. We hired a young man on our team who was very interested in technology and AI. And early on, about 2 years ago, we sent him to a AI and learning workshop just to say, like, if this is going to be a thing, we need someone on the team grounded. And at the same time, the head of data literacy approached me and said, like, we need to build out something. What are your ideas? And so he's got head of literacy has a member from his team. We have a member from my team, and they've really driven this idea. So we started with some low-level prompt engineering content. They ran some workshops. We recorded them, put them on our learning platform. We then built out a community of practice. So we have a very healthy Power BI community of practice. So we wanted to replicate that. Our COP meets monthly. It started with a handful of folks and it's now 600 members strong 2 years later. And they say they get over 150 members every month. And they're constantly feeding. And we're now at that point where we're starting to focus on building agent workshops. And so the team members are out there just going where the energy is and leaders want to learn and helping them learn. Um,
Nice.
we're getting to a point where we're probably going to have to figure out some of their options. So maybe leveraging a third party off the shelf to augment some of the things that the team can't do by demand. But it's just been fun to watch. It's also just an interesting, like the head of literacy and I have never once talked about who owns it, whose budget is it. It's always been like, we have a problem to solve. Let's figure out how we work together and solve that problem. And so it's just been a really great partnership.
Nice, nice. And I think this is how I heard it. Were you saying in the workshop you're doing workshops where people are actually building with AI or like using AI prompts in real time? And
Yep.
nice.
They identify use cases that are most relevant to their part of the business. And then the team between IT and our team show them how to build an agent or how to build a workflow, or sometimes it might be as just entry level as how to prompt efficiently and effectively. But it's very hands-on.
Nice. Yeah. Hey, Kara had a good question. Is that open to anyone in the organization or who's that open to?
Open. Open to anyone in
Nice.
the organization. We've scaled it quite a bit. We're trying to be a little more organize and go where we know we can push some value more rather than that. Like we're at a point organization where prompting is probably not our best energy teaching prompt workshops. We can figure out other ways to help folks learn that skill. The agentic focus is where we need to go.
Yeah. Yeah. And then moving to like your position and your team, how are you thinking about AI right now?
I think there's a couple things. So, Josh, who's a member of my team, we're exchanging some emails this week of like, how do we start to transform some of the more tactical things that we do and build agents on them? So it might be around evaluation. So how do we collect our survey data and do some quick analysis on it? We have a good intake process in the platform, but how do we do some better analysis of um, that work? We've introduced quite a few AI design tools, so I think we're pretty good there from an efficiency level, but it's more like how do we go deeper and start to free up some of the more day-to-day manual tasks and get those off the team, and figure out how to get agents doing that work.
Yeah. 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 I like the evals idea is a good one. I was talking to someone recently. She worked at like a call center training and so she was designing AI agents that would take all the transcripts from every training call
Hmm.
and run like patterns for through all of them to look for like what was working and what wasn't. So I think it's about looking for those areas where you have a lot of data, right? That seems like a recurring theme.
We're doing a book club as an entire team this year. So Josh Cavalier has a new book out on AI in learning, and the team selected that to be our book club. So we'll every 2 weeks we'll read a chapter, come together, and Josh Cavalier has some really great build out tools to apply it. So we're just hoping that on a team learning, we do a Monday morning huddle, and every week we have a placeholder to talk about like what's a new prompt you learn, what's a new skill you learn, what's something cool you did with AI, just to consistently keep it at the forefront of the team as a expectation that we as a team need to get better at it.
Yeah, nice. I I have like one more question, and I see some good ones from the chat that I'll pull out now. So Paige is asking, like she's curious to know more about your frontline leadership strategy. So things like modalities, cadence, is it required or optional? We can go one at a time, but
So our first time people program is required. We expect people to go through it. We don't govern it tightly, but we do put it on folks' transcript and we do monitor it and report against it. It is multimodality. So leveraging some of our off-the-shelf open enrollment courses like Crucial Conversations or Sit Lead. We then do leader circles, so mentor circles around a particular topic, off cycle of those, and then augment it with some online content. We're retooling it a bit this year and building in some much more focus around engaging the managers. That was a gap for us previously, is like, how do we get the managers more involved in this process? And so we will do some manager boosters before sessions. We'll give them some say do reinforce follow up and tips on how to coach and develop.
Nice. And then there's another question here. Do you have any offerings for aspiring emerging leaders?
Not today, but it is like the fastest growing request we're seeing. It's like it was when we first started our differentiated leadership approach, we said it was specifically out of scope, and I probably weekly in the last 6 months get a request to do something for aspiring leaders. So it will probably on the second half of the year something we need to tackle.
Okay, 2026, you think?
Yeah.
Or yeah,
It's
nice.
it's getting to be that big a need.
Yeah, how big would that population be for you?
Gosh, I don't even know what it if we've even started to quantify how big it is.
Yeah.
It's interesting. It's happening in our plant and production environment more so than in our corporate environment. We're getting requests on it.
Yeah. And then I saw one other good question. I think it got buried now. Where'd it go? Oh, here. And are you doing any measurement on the frontline leader program?
We do. I'd love to tell you we're I'd love to tell you we're taking it next level, but right now it's just pretty table stakes measurement.
Mhm.
Attendance. We've built out some of our measurement practice. So we do a level one reaction. We do a level two survey. We haven't done level three on our front line yet.
Yeah. Okay. Uh, Another question on the frontline leader level. So, how did you align on skill focus at that level? Is the question.
The working team did a couple things. So we did some external research to say what's out there that we know that, and interestingly enough, in leadership development, there's some really great content out. CCL has some amazing content. There's some other providers that have some pretty well established here are the skills that first time leaders need. We then did some internal surveys and focus groups, and now the team has been comparing and contrasting and say how do the external data line up to the internal. One of the retooling opportunities we had is I felt that sometimes we were overshooting the first time leaders, that like we were trying to focus more on deepening them as a leader rather than giving them the basic skills as being a manager. Like, how do I delegate? How do I do a performance conversation? So we're kind of reframing that idea of how do I from their voice.
Nice. Oh, here's a good question that I had been trying to scroll for earlier. So, I think this is going back to like the director level now. Sorry, we're jumping around a bit, but how are you uh, developing relevant learning experiences for like manufacturing leaders specifically, even at like the director level? Are they side by side with corporate or shared services?
On our big programs like the Leadership Summit, we bring everyone together. I don't know that we've done a good job yet of really digging in of what that journey looks like and for that's probably our plant supervisors or our plant managers would be about that equate to the director level. Um, we do have a whole initiative around the production environment that we started last year. We started at those kind of earlier career supervisors. But it's an interesting question and probably one to explore more with the team of as we take care of the frontline supervisors, how do we then start to ladder up and what are those experiences? I think one of the consistent challenges we hear, so it's relevant to our business model of the 200-ish plants we have, almost every plant does something different. So some produce cheese, some produce butter, some produce whey protein in the feed category, some might produce flock, some might produce livestock. So one of the challenges we have is every plant is so unique.
Yeah.
The roles are pretty unique as well.
Yeah, you've been plant to plant. That's interesting. Here's another like kind of manufacturing specific question, which is like, how much of your content do you consider homegrown versus off the shelf? Like Crucial Conversations being an off the shelf example, and just this is from Jonelle saying also like I find it difficult to use off the shelf in manufacturing. So curious to get your thoughts on that.
I would say it's probably 60/40, 60 being developed. We've historically partnered with Safety EHS, and they develop a lot of their own content. We do use Open Sesame's library for some OSHA and some of the safety where there's some more concrete standards. But again, each plant is so unique that there's a strong need to develop materials specific to your plant or your focus in your plant.
Yeah. Oh,
We,
good.
yeah, I think
Oh, go
just
ahead.
relative to that, like we just did a learning implementation. We moved away from one enterprise learning platform and one enterprise LXP and to one platform that serves both. And we're now opening up content to be more available in our production environment. So giving them development they haven't had before. So a lot of that is um, off the shelf, so it'll be an e-learning library from Open Sesame. But again, the platform also has a great content creation features built in, and so we're starting to see that our at the plant level, folks are embracing that, and even if it's just building a set of knowledge questionnaire to follow up on something off the shelf, we're starting to see that they're doing that.
Nice. Oh, Anthony Baker, good to see you're here. Good question, which is best way to stay connected with your leaders after they attend a training program? How are you keeping them engaged?
It is on our roadmap for this year. We did a session last year and we identified manager engagement before, during, and after sessions as our primary. So again, follow up, like say, do reinforce, uh, making sure that they have data as we have it coming out of the session. So sharing successes. I'd love to tell you that we've um, mastered this. This is a place that we need to continue to focus. We also know it's the biggest opportunity to make learning sticky is engaging the managers.
Yeah. One last question on my end, which is just like you've been in this role 2 years. Uh, you came in with like a lot to do. If someone else were to step into your role for the first time, like what advice might you give them? What lessons have you learned so far?
This was the first time I've ever worked in the cooperative business model. I purposely chose that, but the cooperative business model is incredibly complex, and we technically are two different types of co-ops. So our dairy business is a very different type of cooperative model than our ag businesses. So I would say to folks is just give yourself some grace to learn the model. So the whole idea of patronage back to members and there's a whole set of member standard cooperative values. Um, that's probably been the biggest learning curve is that complexity. I'd say, in reflecting on this, there were two other things that I wrote down in preparation. One is progress over perfection. And that's probably not a new thing that I'm working on, but in today's age, it's okay to prototype something, figure out if it works, and then scale it rather than try to have something be perfect, which is kind of probably my age is I always wanted to build the perfect everything. And so sometimes it took longer than it needed to. So just how do we get things out there quicker and test and learn and scale where it makes sense? Um,
Nice. Yeah, I think that's a great stopping point. This has been a really nice conversation, and I think we want to give everyone a chance to network a bit here and discuss like what they learned from our conversation just now. And so moving on to the next slide here, just two discussion questions. You can use them if you want. You don't have to, but what are your thoughts on Gary's interview overall? And then especially on that AI piece, like how are you thinking about implementing AI into your strategy over the next 1 to 2 years? And I'll go ahead and open up those breakout rooms. Just give me a moment here. there.
ended, and Gary was actually in our group, and he had an amazing question that we like ended the group with, which is what thinking about what leadership skills are going to be required as companies shift from leading and managing people to leading and managing both people and agents.
That's
And
a
how
great
does that
question.
shift the leadership skill set? I think that was just
Yeah.
a really great question.
Yeah, that's really good.
Hmm.
And still very
All
much
right.
in question mode, not any answers yet.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I think like we all have to experience that before we can imagine how you would lead it. But feels like we're getting closer these days. All right. Well, thank you all so much. Appreciate you coming. I hope you all have a good weekend, and special shout out to Gary. That was a really nice interview. Really appreciate you taking the time.